You weren't supposed to find this. Not today, not at this exact moment. But somehow you did. And deep down, you already feel it, don't you? This isn't just another video. This isn't just another message. Something about this moment feels different, like it's reaching straight through the noise of your life and locking onto you. Listen carefully, because if you clicked on this, if you stayed, if something inside you refused to scroll away, then this message isn't random. It's meant for you. Right now. There's a reason you've always felt different, not better than others, not above anyone, just different, like you were placed in a world that never fully understood you. You've tried to blend in. You've tried to follow the crowd. You've tried to silence that inner voice that keeps telling you there's more. But no matter how hard you tried, it never left you. That feeling, that pull, that quiet knowing. That's not confusion. That's recognition. Because being chosen doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean having everything figured out. It means you've been given awareness before most people are ready to see it. And awareness comes with a cost. You start to notice things others ignore. You feel energy in rooms before anyone says a word. You see through fake smiles. You sense when something isn't right, even when everyone else says it is. And that can feel isolating. There are moments where you question yourself, moments where you wish you could just be like everyone else, unaware, untouched by the weight of understanding. But you can't go back. Once you see, you see. And that's where the struggle begins. Because the world isn't built for people who think deeply, who feel deeply, who question everything. It's built for comfort, routine, distraction. So when someone like you starts to wake up, it creates friction. People misunderstand you. They call you distant. They say you've changed. And the truth is you have. But not in the way they think. You didn't lose yourself. You found yourself. And that makes people uncomfortable. Because your presence, your awareness, your energy, it forces others to confront what they've been avoiding. That's why sometimes it feels like life pushes back harder on you. Like every time you try to grow, something tries to pull you back. Like every time you start stepping into clarity, confusion shows up out of nowhere. That's not coincidence. That's resistance. Because stepping into awareness means breaking patterns, and breaking patterns disrupts everything around you. You were never meant to stay asleep. But waking up comes with pressure. There are nights where your mind won't rest, days where you feel disconnected from everything around you, moments where you feel like you're walking alone, even in a crowd. And yet you keep going. That's the sign. Not perfection, not constant strength, but persistence. The fact that despite everything, you're still searching, still questioning, still trying to understand your purpose. That's what sets you apart. Because most people stop. They settle. They ignore the call. But you didn't. And that's why this message found you. Not because you're lucky, but because you're ready. Ready to stop doubting yourself. Ready to stop shrinking to fit spaces that were never meant for you. Ready to stop pretending you don't feel what you feel. There's a shift happening inside you. You felt it, subtle but undeniable. You're starting to outgrow things. Old habits don't feel the same. Certain people don't resonate anymore. Conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. That's not loss. That's alignment. You're being pulled towards something greater, something deeper, something real. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Because growth always is. But you need to understand this. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're not broken. You're in transition. And transitions are messy. They don't come with clear instructions. They don't come with guarantees. They come with uncertainty, with doubt, with moments where you feel like you're falling apart. But sometimes, falling apart is exactly what needs to happen. Because you can't step into who you're becoming while holding onto who you used to be. Let that sink in. You've been holding onto versions of yourself that no longer fit, old identities, old fears, old limitations. And now they're cracking. That pressure you feel, that's not life working against you. That's life reshaping you, stripping away everything that isn't aligned so you can finally see who you truly are. And who you truly are was never meant to be small. You were never meant to silence your voice. You were never meant to ignore your intuition. You were never meant to follow a path that feels empty just because it's familiar. You were meant to question, to feel, to grow, to awaken. And yes, it comes with loneliness at times. But that loneliness isn't punishment. It's preparation. Because not everyone is meant to walk this path with you. Some people are part of your story, not your destination. And as hard as it is to accept, letting go is part of becoming. You're not losing people. You're finding clarity. And clarity requires space. Space to think. Space to feel. Space to reconnect with yourself without outside noise. Because the truth is, everything you've been searching for starts within you. Not in validation. Not in approval. Not in being understood by everyone. But in trusting yourself even when no one else does. That's the real awakening. Not some dramatic moment. Not some sudden transformation. But a quiet shift. A decision. A realization that you don't need permission to be who you are. You just need courage. And you already have it. You've proven that by being here. By staying. By listening. So now the question is, why is this happening to me? The question is, what am I being prepared for? Because this, everything you've been feeling, everything you've been going through, it's not random. It's building you, strengthening you, awakening you for something greater than you can see right now. So don't run from it. Don't suppress it. Don't ignore it. Lean into it. Trust it. Embrace it. Because this message didn't find you by accident. And neither did this moment. If this resonated with you, don't ignore that feeling. Acknowledge it. Own it. And if you're ready to fully step into this journey, then show it. Like this video. Comment "I'm ready" if you feel this message was meant for you. And subscribe to Return to Awakening, because this is just the beginning of what you're about to discover. And even now, there's a part of you that's still questioning everything you just heard. Not because it's false, but because it feels too real, too close, too accurate to ignore. That's how truth works. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. It quietly sits within you, waiting for the moment you're ready to face it. And you're closer than you think. There were moments in your life that didn't make sense back then, situations that felt unfair, losses you couldn't explain, doors that closed when you were sure they were meant for you. At the time, it felt like everything was falling apart. But now, if you look closely, you'll start to see the pattern. Those moments weren't there to break you. They were there to redirect you. Every setback, every disappointment, every time you felt like you were being pushed back, it was actually moving you into alignment with something deeper. But alignment doesn't feel comfortable at first. It feels like confusion. It feels like isolation. It feels like being misunderstood in rooms where you once felt accepted. Because when you begin to change internally, your external world has no choice but to respond. And that response isn't always gentle. Sometimes it shows up as distance. Sometimes it shows up as rejection. Sometimes it shows up as silence from people you thought would always understand you. But understand this: not everyone is meant to understand your evolution. Some people were only meant to meet the version of you that you're outgrowing. And holding on to them, holding on to those old connections, only delays the person you're becoming. That's why it feels like you're being pulled in two different directions. One part of you wants to stay where it's familiar, where it's safe, where it's known. And another part of you, a deeper part, is calling you forward. Into uncertainty. Into growth. Into something that requires you to let go of everything that no longer aligns. And that's where most people stop. That's where most people turn back. Because stepping into the unknown requires a level of trust that not everyone is willing to develop. But you've already taken steps others are afraid to take. You've already questioned things others blindly accept. You've already felt things others try to numb. So don't stop now. Because what you're feeling isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of clarity. There's a reason your awareness is increasing. A reason your tolerance for fake energy is fading. A reason why certain environments drain you now, when they used to feel normal. You're not becoming difficult. You're becoming precise. Precise with your energy. Precise with your time. Precise with who and what you allow into your life. And that precision is power. But power comes with responsibility. Because once you become aware, you can't pretend you don't see. You can't go back to old patterns without feeling it. You can't ignore your intuition without consequences. And that's why this stage feels intense. Because you're being asked to choose. Not once, but over and over again. Choose growth over comfort. Choose truth over illusion. Choose alignment over approval. And every time you make that choice, even in small ways, you strengthen something within you that can't be shaken. Something real. Something grounded. Something that doesn't depend on external validation. But let's be honest. There are still moments where it gets heavy. Moments where you feel tired of always being the one who understands more, feels more, sees more. Moments where you wish you could just switch it off, even for a little while. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you human. Awakening isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming aware of your emotions without being controlled by them. And that takes time. It takes patience. It takes going through phases where you feel like you're losing control, only to realize later you were gaining clarity. So if you're in that space right now, where things feel unclear, where your direction feels uncertain, where your emotions feel heavier than usual, don't panic. You're not off track. You're going deeper. And depth always feels different than surface-level living. It's quieter. It's more intense. It forces you to confront parts of yourself you used to avoid. But that confrontation is where transformation begins. Because you can't heal what you refuse to face. And you can't grow into your purpose while avoiding your truth. So everything that's surfacing within you right now, the thoughts, the realizations, the discomfort, it's all part of the process. Not to overwhelm you, but to wake you up fully. Not halfway, not partially, but completely, into who you were always meant to become. And as this awakening deepens, something else begins to happen. You start noticing the silence, not just around you, but within you. The noise that once filled your mind, the constant overthinking, the need to prove yourself, the urge to be accepted, it slowly begins to fade. And in its place, there's space. Space to think clearly. space to observe without reacting, space to finally hear your own thoughts without interference. At first, that silence feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable. Because you are so used to chaos, that peace feels strange. But that peace, that quiet clarity, that's where your real strength is forming. Because when you're no longer controlled by external noise, you become anchored, grounded, unshaken by opinions, by trends, by temporary emotions. And that's when your perspective shifts even more. You begin to see how much of the world operates on autopilot. How many people are chasing things they don't truly want. How many are living lives that don't reflect who they really are, just to avoid standing out. And for a moment, you might feel disconnected from it all. Like you don't belong anywhere. Like you're observing life instead of participating in it. But that feeling isn't separation. It's awareness. You're seeing clearly now. And clarity changes everything. Because once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them. You start recognizing cycles in people. Repeated behaviors. Predictable reactions. You notice how certain conversations follow the same scripts, how certain environments carry the same energy, how certain outcomes were always leading where they ended. And suddenly, life doesn't feel random anymore. It feels intentional, layered, connected in ways you never noticed before. And that realization, it changes how you move. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop chasing things that don't align. You stop forcing connections that feel one-sided. Instead, you observe. You choose. You move with intention. And that kind of movement is rare. Because most people are driven by impulse, by emotion, by external pressure. But you're starting to move differently now. And not everyone will understand that. Some will think you've become distant. Others will think you've changed too much. But what they don't realize is, you're no longer operating from the same level you once were. You've outgrown the need to explain yourself. Outgrown the need to convince others of your worth. Outgrown the need to be constantly understood. Because deep down, you understand yourself. And that's enough. But this level of awareness also brings responsibility in another way. You begin to see through illusions. And sometimes, that includes people you once trusted. That part, it's not easy. Seeing the truth in situations you once believed in. Recognizing intentions that were hidden behind words. Realizing that not everyone who smiles with you stands with you. It can feel like a loss. Like something is being taken from you. But in reality, something is being revealed to you. And revelation, even when it's uncomfortable, is a form of protection. Because what you see clearly can no longer control you blindly. So even when it hurts, even when it disappoints you, even when it makes you question everything, it's still serving you. It's still guiding you. It's still aligning you. And the more you accept that, the lighter you begin to feel. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer resisting what is. You're flowing with it, learning from it, growing through it. And that's when something powerful begins to settle within you. A quiet confidence. Not loud. Not attention-seeking. Not dependent on validation. But steady. Unshakable. The kind of confidence that comes from knowing you've faced yourself. You've questioned your beliefs. You've walked through confusion and didn't run from it. You felt the discomfort and still kept going. And that builds something within you that nothing external can take away. Because it wasn't given to you. You earned it. Through experience. through reflection, through choosing growth, even when it was difficult. And now, you're no longer who you used to be, but you're also not fully who you're becoming yet. You're in between, in that space where everything feels like it's shifting, but nothing feels fully settled. And that in-between space, that's where most transformations happen. Not in the comfort, not in the certainty, but in the transition, where you're forced to trust without having all the answers, where you're guided without seeing the full path, where you're growing even when it feels like you're standing still. So if you feel like you're in that space right now, don't rush it. Don't try to force clarity before it's ready. Don't try to escape the process just because it feels unfamiliar. Because this exact moment you're in, is shaping you in ways you can't fully see yet. And one day, you'll look back at this phase and realize this is where everything started to make sense. And the deeper you move into this phase, the more you begin to understand something most people never realize. Not everything is meant to stay. Not every connection is meant to last. Not every version of you is meant to survive this transformation. And that truth, it changes how you hold on to things. You begin to loosen your grip on expectations, on outcomes, on people who only fit into who you used to be. Because holding on too tightly starts to feel heavy now. Unnatural, like you're forcing something that your soul has already outgrown. And for the first time, you start choosing peace over attachment. You start choosing alignment over familiarity. You start choosing growth, even when it means walking away. And that choice, it's not easy. There are moments where your mind tries to pull you back, reminding you of memories, comfort, what used to feel good. But your awareness won't let you settle there anymore. Because you've seen too much. You've felt too deeply. You've recognized patterns that can't be ignored. So even when you try to go back, it doesn't feel the same. It can't feel the same. Because you're not the same. And that's the moment where it truly hits you. This journey isn't about becoming something new. It's about returning to who you've always been, beneath the noise, beneath the expectations, beneath the conditioning that told you who you should be. And that return, it requires honesty, real honesty, the kind where you stop pretending, stop avoiding, stop telling yourself stories that keep you comfortable but stuck. You start asking deeper questions. Why do I feel this way? Why do I keep repeating certain patterns? Why do certain things trigger me more than others? And instead of running from those answers, you sit with them. You face them, even when they're uncomfortable. Because you've reached a point where truth matters more than comfort. And that shift, it's powerful because it breaks cycles. Cycles that may have followed you for years, maybe even your entire life. Cycles of self-doubt, of seeking validation, of staying in situations that didn't serve you just to avoid being alone. But now, you're seeing those cycles clearly. And awareness is the first step to breaking them. But here's what most people don't talk about. Breaking cycles doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like emptiness. Like something is missing. Like the familiar patterns that once filled your life have suddenly disappeared and left space behind. And that space, it can feel uncomfortable, even lonely, because you're no longer distracted by the things that used to keep you occupied. You're left with yourself, your thoughts, your truth. And that's where the real work begins. Because being alone with yourself, without distractions, It reveals everything: your fears, your insecurities, your desires, the parts of you you tried to ignore. And in that space, you have a choice. You can run back to old patterns just to fill the silence. Or you can stay. You can sit in that discomfort and allow it to transform you. Because that emptiness, it's not a void. It's a reset, a clearing, a space being created for something new to enter your life. But it can only be filled with something real if you don't rush to fill it with something temporary. And that requires patience, trust, and a level of self-discipline that most people never develop. But you're developing it right now, even if it doesn't feel like it. Every moment you choose not to go back to what you've outgrown. Every moment you choose to sit with your thoughts instead of escaping them. Every moment you choose growth over comfort. You're strengthening something within you that can't be shaken. And slowly, that emptiness begins to change. It no longer feels heavy. It starts to feel peaceful, clear, like a calm space where your thoughts are no longer fighting each other, but aligning. And from that clarity, new understanding begins to form. You start realizing that everything you went through, every confusion, every setback, every moment you felt lost, it wasn't random. It was preparation. Preparation for this level of awareness, this level of understanding, this version of yourself that can now see beyond surface-level living. And when that realization settles in, something shifts even deeper within you. You stop seeing your past as something that happened to you and start seeing it as something that shaped you, guided you, positioned you exactly where you are right now. And that perspective, it changes everything. Because instead of regret, you feel understanding. Instead of resistance, you feel acceptance. Instead of questioning why, you start recognizing how it all connects, how it all led you here, how every experience, even the painful ones, carried something valuable within it. And that's when you begin to trust your journey in a way you never have before. Not because everything is clear, but because you've seen enough to know there's a purpose behind what you've been through, even if you can't fully explain it yet. And that trust, it becomes your foundation, not external validation, not approval, not certainty, but trust in yourself, in your path, in the process that's unfolding, step by step, even when you don't have all the answers. And once that foundation is built, you start moving differently again, with more calm, more intention, more awareness of what truly matters and what doesn't. And suddenly, things that once felt urgent no longer feel important. Things that once consumed your energy no longer have the same hold on you. You become more selective, more focused, more aligned. And that alignment, it starts attracting different experiences into your life. Not because you're forcing them, but because you're no longer entertaining what doesn't match your energy. And that shift, it's quiet, subtle, but powerful, because your life begins to reflect who you've become internally. Not who you used to be, not who others expect you to be, but who you truly are when you're aligned, aware, and unapologetically real. And as this alignment becomes stronger, you begin to notice something else that most people overlook. Your reactions start changing. Situations that once triggered you no longer have the same effect. Things that used to drain your energy now feel distant, almost irrelevant. And it's not because you've become cold. It's because you've become aware. Aware of what deserves your energy and what doesn't. And that awareness, it protects you, not in a defensive way, but in a grounded way. You no longer feel the need to respond to everything. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth in spaces that were never designed to recognize it. And that shift, it changes your entire experience of life. Because your peace is no longer negotiable. It's not something you give away easily. It's something you guard quietly, intentionally. And that doesn't mean you isolate yourself. It means you become intentional with where you place your presence, who you give your time to, what you allow into your mind. Because you've realized something powerful. Energy is everything. Where your attention goes, your life follows. And for so long, your attention was pulled in different directions. By expectations, by distractions, by people who didn't truly see you. But now, you're reclaiming it, piece by piece, moment by moment. And that reclamation, it's one of the most important parts of this journey. Because when you take your energy back, you take your power back. And when you take your power back, everything begins to shift. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily, in a way that feels real, sustainable, aligned. You begin to create space for things that actually resonate with you, conversations that feel meaningful, environments that feel peaceful, connections that feel genuine, not forced. And the more you align with that, the less tolerance you have for anything that feels off. And that's not arrogance. That's clarity. Clarity about what you deserve. Clarity about what you're no longer willing to accept. Clarity about the kind of life you're choosing to build, intentionally. Because now, you're no longer moving through life unconsciously. You're aware of your choices, aware of your patterns, aware of the impact your decisions have on your future. And that level of awareness, it makes you powerful, not in a loud way, but in a quiet, undeniable way. The kind of power that doesn't need validation. The kind of power that doesn't need attention. The kind of power that simply exists because it's built on truth. And with that power comes another realization. You don't need to rush. You don't need to force outcomes. You don't need to chase what's meant for you. Because what aligns with you will meet you at the level you're operating on. Not because of luck, but because of resonance. Because you've done the internal work. Because you've chosen growth over comfort. Because you've stayed on your path, even when it felt uncertain. And now, life begins to respond to that. Opportunities start appearing differently. Conversations start carrying more depth. Situations begin to unfold in ways that feel almost guided. Not perfect, but purposeful. And you start to trust that. Not blindly, but through experience. Through seeing how things come together when you're aligned. Through noticing how forcing things never truly worked. But allowing things creates space for something real to enter. And that's where your mindset shifts again. From control to trust. From chasing to attracting. From forcing to aligning. And that shift, it brings a different kind of peace. A deeper kind. The kind that doesn't depend on everything going your way, but on knowing that whatever happens, you'll navigate it with awareness, with intention, with a sense of grounding that you didn't have before. And that grounding, it changes how you face challenges too. Because challenges don't disappear, but your relationship with them changes. You no longer see them as obstacles. You start seeing them as signals, feedback, indicators of where you're being stretched, where you're being tested, where you're being prepared for the next level of your journey. And instead of resisting them, you observe them, learn from them, move through them with a different kind of mindset, a mindset that understands growth isn't always comfortable, but it's always necessary. And the more you embrace that, the less fear controls you, the less doubt holds you back, the less external noise influences your direction. Because you've built something internally that external chaos can't easily shake. And that's when you truly begin to understand. This path you're on, it's not about becoming someone else. It's about removing everything that is truly you. Every layer of doubt, every layer of fear, every layer of conditioning that told you to shrink, to hide, to stay within limits that were never meant for you. And as those layers fall away, what's left is clarity, raw, unfiltered, powerful clarity about who you are and what you're here to do. Even if you can't fully define it yet, you can feel it. And that feeling, it guides you in ways logic can't always explain, in ways that don't always make sense to others, but make perfect sense to you. And that's enough. Because this journey was never meant to be understood by everyone. It was meant to be experienced by you.